How are you guys doing with this collective grief, trauma, anxiety that a lot of us are feeling? Today we have a very special episode, and I have on Araceli Vidales, who is a first-gen, trauma-informed, decolonized, connected to Indigenous therapist. And we talk about all of it. We talk about how this collective grief, trauma, anxiety impacts our bodies, how we can talk to and help our children feel safe with everything and how that's impacting them. And also some practical skills, breathing, physical touch, things that we can do to help self-regulate our nervous systems. It's about 2 hours, a little bit longer, but it's because we talk about all this and so much more, the stuff that's lying underneath, the stuff that's compounded on top, and just, some solutions and what we're doing to not just survive, but try to thrive and not give up, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to overload us and overwhelm us and give up. And if we stay in community and we share information and hold space for each other, we don't have to do that and we can continue to fight. So thank you for watching or listening, and I give you Araceli.
Hola, welcome to Word to Your Mama, the podcast that amplifies diverse voices and celebrates shared experiences. Hosted by me, Ritzy P, a Latina creative entrepreneur with a background in art, music, and new web technologies. From Academy and Emmy winners to activists, artists, and builders, we celebrate the rich diversity of my multicultural tribe. There will be special guests, mad laughs, and absolutely no BS. Word to Your Mama drops every Monday on your favorite podcast platform.
Araceli, muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for saying yes. I put out the call and I asked if this is something that you would be interested in, if you had the bandwidth, the capacity to do. So I really, really appreciate it. I want to start the way I start every episode. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, today I'm feeling very hopeful. I'm very excited of just seeing everybody come together on such a historic day. So I'm very excited. Today's a good day so far. What about
If you want
you?
to tell the folks, a little more context. So when they listen to this, maybe
Oh,
they're not
that's
listening.
right.
You know what I mean?
So
They're going to listen to it
it's
after the fact.
January 30th, the general strike and really fighting for our rights I mean, ba- basic human rights. Right now it's just seems like it's the wild, wild west. And
Yeah.
so, our people have been hunted down. I mean, in Santana, where I'm from, I mean, we've been dealing with this for over a year now, you know? And, I'm excited, I'm excited to see more and more people come together in their own way. Um, I love how you said in the, whatever capacity, bandwidth, right? Cause not right now with everything that's going on, I also understand not everybody has a capacity, not everybody has a bandwidth, but there's always something each single one of us can do in our own way. Right. And
Right.
so, yeah, I'm excited to be talking to you as, obviously everything's starting and barely starting. So, we're going to see where it goes. I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big,
No,
big
thank
day
you.
supporting
Big
Minneapolis.
day.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Nationwide strike.
ICE has killed more people this year in total,
Yeah.
and unfortunately it's our brown people that don't get the publicity that they deserve, and it takes um two white people to unfortunately lose their lives for people to get it from different ethnicities and backgrounds, um but for us that can't take off our skin, for our
Right.
men that are being targeted, right? They're really targeting our men, and it's like we've known what that fear looks like. We've lived with it, right? Um, we know that this has been going on. That's not new, right? This isn't new.
Right.
It's been going on. It just happens that this time I wasn't a brown person.
Right.
But I'm grateful for whatever attention we are able to bring, um, and I'm it's unfortunate, that this is where we at. It's really sad. The lives that have been lost, the impact of the trauma that's gonna, I mean, you're still not over even the pandemic,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
so it's crazy. Like what, like us millennials, I think we have had to live through, and then the compound effect of the trauma, because it's
See.
like one
Uh-huh.
thing after another, and you don't, especially with the kids in the early years, it's such an important time for development and setting your nervous system. Your
Mm.
nervous system isn't even, you still don't know how to control your nervous system, and they're
Right.
being impacted, and we're going to see, unfortunately, the ramifications of everything that's going on for
Yeah.
years to come,
Yeah.
and I think it's important to acknowledge that this, you know, at some point this is going to end, right? I'm not saying it's going to be today, tomorrow, but there will be an end. But the trauma that this has caused, there isn't going to be an end to it. It's going to
Right.
be continue. That's still going to be, that person is still impacted. That person will not feel safe. If, who knows, right? If they get the right help, maybe they will, you
Yeah.
know, if they're resilient, if they're able to overcome that, but there's going to be people that are never going to feel safe again. And that's
Right.
unfortunate, you know, because it's not just
Yeah.
right now. Yeah.
It's long-term effects, long-term impact
Mm-hmm.
from everything that's
Yeah.
happened. Everything
Mm-hmm.
that is happening will continue to happen if we don't do these baby steps, these bigger steps, this
Mm-hmm.
community organizing, the mobilizing, and todo
Yeah.
eso. And before we go a little deeper into why
Hmm.
we're here, I just wanted to give context to who you are, Araceli. Where were you born and raised? Where are your people from? And what brought you to get into this type of work? And let us know, give people more context on the kind of work
Yeah.
that you do as a therapist, please.
So, I'm from Santana, been there most of my life. And attended public schools, went to Santa Ana College, Fullerton, and then took a break from school, and eventually really found, I think I've always been in job, like for me it's been the opposite, where I find the job that I love and I fall in love with it, and
Mm,
it just happens that it just aligns with the school, with what I want to
ah,
learn and what I'm interested in. So, in one way, shape, or form, I've always been in the mental health field. After high school, um, and how did I become a therapist? I became a therapist because I say this story a lot. Um, but when I had a friend, we both started. Her name is Caro. Hi, Caro. We met we both started at the same day at this agency for mental health. She had just finished her master's in as a social worker, um, and I was done with my BA. So, and she would tell me, Ara, she saw something in me, and she would say, Ara, you're really good at what you do. You should
mm,
consider being a therapist. And I was like, I'll be honest, trying to get my BA traumatized me. And I never
talk
even
about
saw
it.
myself doing, like, going into to getting my master's. Like, that wasn't even a thing I thought about until she brought it up. And I just remember she really encouraged me. And and honestly, like, you just never know, like, how much of an impact you're gonna have on someone, right?
Mhm.
Because, she kind of put things into perspective too, in terms of like, where do you want to go? What do how do you want to grow? And she kind of plantó la semillita. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go back. And then I ended up going back to get it's the official title is like my master's in counseling psychology,
Hell yeah.
marriage and family therapy. I ended up going back because I was just like, well, what's the compromise? I don't want to be in school for another 4, 5 years.
Right.
So I was really thinking about what do I feel like I can do? Right. Talking about bandwidth, right? Like, what was my
Mhm.
bandwidth with school? And so I found a program that was actually a really good fit for me. And I got my master's with National University because I had to work full time. I didn't have the
Right.
option to not work, you know. Um, And so, and the way their classes were set up just worked with my brain too. It's because I was also
Mm,
thinking about that, like, okay, this didn't work for me last time. So really
right.
like trying to figure out, finding some kind of like medium of like, okay, maybe I was turned off, but maybe now I'm open to it. But what does that look like? So I actually went to like explore different programs and um one thing I realized and even before that, when I was even at college, being a night student, how um we get left behind, us night
Yes.
students that have to work, that don't have that support, financial support from our families.
Right.
It made it really difficult, I'll be honest with you, and discouraging at first.
Right.
But luckily, like I didn't give up and I found something that was gonna work, you know?
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I understand too the struggle for the night students to get all the classes that you need to find. I think especially as you move up in academia, finding a program that is accessible and realistic for like your circumstances, if you
Right.
can live at home and not have to work and then that might be helpful and might be different, but for me that wasn't an option. But I'm really really grateful that again I didn't give up and I'm here. Best decision I could have made, to be
Yeah.
honest. I remember when I had to sign to get the loans. I was like, "Oh," I was like, I'm like, "This is scaring me," but I was like, "No, it's scarier to not evolve, right? It's
Right.
scarier to be stuck." So I always say, "Can I cuss a little bit in this? Can I
Hell
cuss?"
yeah. Hell
Yeah,
yeah. All
okay.
day.
Yeah, okay. Because I was I literally was like, "Chinga su madre, será lo que va a ser, I'll figure out as I go." And yeah,
Right.
and that's how I ended up, getting my master's and loving it, I remember this friend told me it's not the same as your BA. It's actually easier because it's more concentrated on things that you like.
Mhm.
And so it's true. My master was so much easier than my BA. My BA is in psychology, because it was like everything I already liked and I was already doing. So,
Right.
and then worked for the county for a few years. And then during the Great Resignation, decided to leave the county and do my own thing. I do have a child that is on the spectrum and is also identifies as a female. And so there was my kids were very little. I had two under
Mm.
two. And so with the pandemic, I think what it made a lot of us realize is how much we're missing out, right? Like we're
Right.
missing out so much. And you know, a lot of us like having to work, right? But also having to experience our own family members, you know, going through COVID and the fear, it was just like, how is it worth it? I had to really stop and think,
Mm.
where is my energy going, my stress, who's getting the better parts of me? And
Right.
my life was just so out of balance. And it was making me sick, you know,
Right.
and decided
Like
I need to,
literally.
yeah, no,
Like
literally,
literally making you sick.
it was
Yeah.
making me sick and decided, you know what, I'm just gonna, I talked to my husband and he's always been so supportive
Mm.
and he's like, we'll figure it out.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I quit and I thought I was gonna be depressed and anxious, the opposite happened.
Right.
Opposite, I felt like I could breathe again. I could be there for the ABA sessions.
Right.
And then I had to stop and think how, if I start my own practice, what do I want it to look like? What I felt like I'm free now. I'm away from the
Mm.
matrix.
Right.
And so, I had already started this journey on just reconnecting with my roots, with my history,
Mhm.
learning more about um, the knowledge of our ancestors and how to bring that into therapy. you know. And so
Yeah.
when I finally decided to start my practice, that was something that I knew I wanted to incorporate,
Mm,
as part of the practice is bring in the ancestral knowledge, that is also very therapeutic, and it's unfortunate that when I guess capitalism doesn't see the value in, I guess, our ancestral medicine, right? They don't take it as serious. It's not seen as therapeutic when in reality, anything can really be therapeutic. It depends how it's presented and used and on the person, right?
mhm,
And, now I see more and more like academia, I'll say that, using now charging to get a degree using our people's knowledge, you know?
right.
And it's just like,
Co-opting our shit.
mhm. And I was just like, hell no, dude. Hell no. You're charging, I think one program to learn about. Oh, I
Oh,
thought
there
you were
was a
telling.
bug. There was a bug,
Oh, I
sorry.
was like, "¿Que tengo un pelo?" Something
Let me
else
see,
like that.
Araceli. Let me see. Let me see.
Some of these, especially with like plant medicine, they're charging like 10K to, I don't know, give you some kind of training and certificate. And I'm not saying that that's not important, but what I'm saying is like, wow, like you're charging that much for knowledge that's not yours, that doesn't belong to you,
Exactly.
and
And
it's
like kind
just,
of sanitizing it too, right? Like they're like
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
making it clinical and like they're
yeah,
taking away it's just yeah, I've had
yeah, they're not
discussions with
honoring
friends
it.
about that. So yeah,
Yeah.
for
They're
sure.
not abren los rumbos or they don't know about that, and it's just like, okay, like, no, 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 just because I don't know, go to one retreat doesn't mean like there's respect behind it. It's not about
Right.
gatekeeping, right? It's
No,
about
no.
honoring the
Mhm.
people who that came before us who have been
Yeah.
using this medicine and continue to use it. And
Right.
yeah, when they start making money off of our shit, dude, it pisses me off. It
The
really
rage.
does, porque
Yes.
algún punto a nosotros nos castigaron por usar esa medicina
That's
o nos
right.
decían que no, you
Because we're
know?
savages doing shit
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
oh, yeah. We're the
Savages.
savages, yeah.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but Araceli, I wanna thank you so much for sharing your story, where you're from and how you got into this work. First of all, not that many in our community are getting our BAs. Felicidades on that. Even less numbers from our community are getting their master. So I
Mhm,
want to honor that and recognize that, say
mm,
felicidades for that.
m'kay.
And also gracias for doing that because we need more of us in that field, right?
Sí, ya me lo tomé.
um, and something that's real important that I think when I read something later that someone submitted, we need people that not only are in your field but are doing what you're doing, doing it from, as you say, on everything. When I was doing the research on you, from the first gen perspective, from trauma informed,
Mm,
decolonized, like that's so many, there's so many layers of importance of the things that that you've accomplished already. And acknowledging that it was difficult, that, you didn't have the luxury of, not working, and you still did it. So I want
mm.
to acknowledge that.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
and the COVID of it all, the appropriation of our stuff,
Mhm,
bringing it into this moment. And you're talking about when you're talking about them, charging so much for our stuff, our medicine, our medicina,
mhm,
the herbals, the herbalism, the studies, the
mhm,
traditions, or taking them out or whatever. And you mentioned, you know, we have I think there's a big conversation that happens a lot, and we talk about
mhm,
generational trauma.
mhm,
But I think you're talking about what we need to also remind our people, ourselves and our people, we have generational wisdom.
mhm.
We have
Right.
and I was reminded of that a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Oh shit! If we have this, we also have this." And I feel like
Mhm.
you are one of the, the I don't know what the appropriate word is, but like a culture bearer to be able to do that for us. So thank you. So
Yeah.
bringing that into what we're going through now, um, because we already come with trauma,
Right.
like you mentioned,
Mhm.
ICE. I try to remind people last year we be, our gente have been dealing with Border Patrol, ICE since its inception
Mhm.
after 9/11,
Mhm.
right? Like every
Right.
administration since then, including Obama, have been dealing,
Mhm.
but it's under the shadows because it's against
Right.
us, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now it's a different thing. And also on top of that, the trauma of just trying to survive being first gen, the
Mhm.
trauma that we got in our genes from, from our mom and our
Yeah,
abuelita,
from colonization, that
right?
that keeps getting passed. It's so important that we I was just having this conversation as to how important it is to know your history,
Yeah.
know and your own personal history, de tu
Sí.
familia. Know your roots, ask questions, you know, because if we get to part of me, a theory or a thought that I have that a lot of people think about like, why is there so many brown people becoming ICE agents, And one of the theories I have is what happens when we're 2, 3 generations in? Are we still talking about our struggles before before us? Or have we become so distant from that struggle, from the sufrimiento, you know? That we just become disconnected and we forget about it, because someone did have to sacrifice, right, at some
Right.
point to be in this country, whether they were already here and they were kicked out, right? Because a lot, I just go back and I think about, for example, the Bracero program,
Mm-hmm.
right? They wanted our labor, they wanted, y para eso servimos, ¿verdad? Eso sí,
Right.
para eso servimos, para trabajar, right? Para partirnos la, you know what. And
Right.
as soon as like, okay, I'm gonna spit you back out. Now you go back, Operation Wetback, you
Right.
know? And so it's like we're more than our labor, we're more than that. And so we need to know, like I know one of my grandparents was part of the Bracero program, you know,
Mm.
know your history as much as you can be, talk to your elders because you'd
Right.
be surprised. Cause I always it's important to look at generational trauma. We all got it in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
you know?
You can't
But
escape it.
when but when you start seeing what those before you went through,
Right.
you start really understanding yourself and then you become more empowered. And then I think you aren't as afraid to speak up and stand out, because
Right.
you know who you are, right? And so they can't take
Yeah.
that away from you. They can't take that shit away from us, even if they want to. It's not going to happen,
Try to.
you know?
Yeah.
And preserving that, and keep talking to the generations, your kids. Don't let those
Mm-hmm.
stories die. It's
Exactly.
so important, you know? Even if you think it's something that nobody cares about, you don't know that. You don't
Yeah.
know if that little bit of information help someone, or
Right.
answer someone's questions. Who knows, But yeah,
Right.
talk to your elders. Ask them questions. What was it like? Before
Yeah.
you were here, my parents are from Zacatecas, and I have some interesting history, but I wouldn't have known if I wouldn't have been curious. And some people might see it as like you might be disrespectful asking too many questions. Um, but to me, it's like I'm willing to take the risk. If I get an
Yeah.
answer from, my abuela or
A
grandfather or
tia or
tío or
something.
tía, who say, quien sea,
Yeah.
because this
Yeah.
is how we
It's so,
perpetuate those family secrets too.
secrets for days, especially in our
Mhm,
community, in a lot of,
mhm,
marginalized communities. But, going back to the heartbreak you see Like before you saw border patrol agents, you're like, oh, that sucks, of color and Latinos, that
Mm,
sucks. But ahorita, at this moment, you're like, even now, dude, you're gonna take the money and do that. And for me, it's always like, damn, white supremacy, man. Proximity to whiteness is one hell of a drug. It
mhm,
fucks you up from the inside out. Like you're
mhm.
brown as hell. Brown as
Yeah,
hell.
yeah.
Browner
And
than
the thing
me, browner than you. And
see
still, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this. And they're never gonna see you, dude, unless you're out of when you're out of that uniform, they could give a fuck. They
yep.
could give a fuck. So
Mhm.
bringing it to today and what we're feeling right now, can you let us know, because I see it even just not even our communities, it's extended to all marginalized community, and is it also extended to, you know, the white folks, the more privileged folks, because now it's impacting them in a way that it never has in
Mhm.
our lifetime, right? So
Mhm.
what could you tell us more about this collective grief trauma? Like how do you name it, and how does it impact our bodies?
Oh god, our nervous system, right? Like, everything just goes back. A lot of trauma just goes back to a nervous system. How are we gonna regulate yourself? Like, in sessions, this has been coming up since it first started,
I bet.
but I would say that these past 2, 3 weeks, a lot of the conversation is around disbelief, grief,
Mm,
anger, and lately it's how can I feel hope? Because it just
yeah,
it doesn't seem to be getting better, you know.
right.
We talk about that a lot, and so one of the things, I won't sugarcoat things. Like
Mm.
shit's fucked up. It is. Like it's
Right.
fucked up. Like
Excuse me.
I'm like aliens, yeah, llévenme. I'm ready.
Beam me up,
Just take
beam me
me
up.
out.
Yeah.
you know, um, and so I don't want to be like, let's all regulate and ground because it's like we can't take off our skin.
Yeah.
We have kids, schools aren't, I'm scared of sending my kids to school. And
Not safe.
it's like we got to worry about shootings and now like ICE. Really? Right? Um, so, I'm not down with like that toxic positivity. Like everything's going to be fine, love and light, just de por sí no soy así, but, I think to acknowledge the rawness of what's going on, right? The ugliness of what's going on. Like, yeah, it is fucked up. It is scary. There is a lot of uncertainty in more than one way, not just ICE, but like people losing their jobs, right?
Right.
Not being able to, just get their basic needs met. There is a lot of that. But I go back to this was um when I was feeling like pretty hopeless a couple days ago. I just started journaling, just and a big thing that I think when I look when I feel hopeless, I was thinking about when this passes and my kids ask me questions or other people, right? Will ask, "What were you doing? What did you do?"
Mm,
Right?
right.
Feeling hopeless is not what I want to be said, you know. Um, and even when I don't feel a lot of hope, if I'm still willing to fight, if I'm still
Right.
willing to do something to fight back, then that means my hope is not lost, right? Because if I didn't feel some kind of hope, then why would I want to keep fighting? Doesn't mean that I'm like, yes, we're so hopeful. Things are gonna. No, it doesn't always feel that way, and that's okay. That's also okay. Not acknowledging that part, I think is also not the right way to go. You have to acknowledge that part. It's very real, right? And it's
Right.
also very real that there's days that even myself, I struggle with feeling hope. I struggle with feeling grounded, you know. Um, but as especially those that are in the front lines who are also again, people of color. right? Putting their lives on the line, um, so that our community can, because we can't take this laying down, right? Um, and then also hearing and seeing, right? We're in this unique, I think, spot where those that are doing the work are also impacted in the stories they hear, the stories they see in their home, but
Right.
also yourself being a brown person, that we know that at any point, we can be impacted directly as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that some of us are sandwiched, with all these layers of depending on all the hats that we wear, right?
Right.
And so, you know, if we they want our hope to be taken away. They want our hope to be gone. That's why
That's
they're
the
going
goal.
so hard.
Yeah.
That's why they're going hard. They want us to feel defeated. And so when I go back and I think about that, me da un puto coraje. Me da un puto coraje. And I was like, no, si quieren, even if it's just por mi pinche orgullo,
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, no, like I'm not gonna, we're not gonna let's not let them take away your hope. Let's
Right.
not. Yes, acknowledge that we're in a ugly situation right now, that we are anxious, that it's not easy perhaps to feel grounded, and maybe it's just moments, right?
Right.
I think right now it's important to um, enjoy when you do catch yourself feeling relaxed, enjoy that moment, make it last, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about this big, like, I'm going to do this huge thing so that I can stay grounded or so that my nervous system is going to out, because it's not realistic because things change so fast, right?
Right.
And so it's more about like, where can I find little moments of happiness, little
Mm.
moments of peace, right? Because the other layer that I was thinking about too is that just how we're watching our community be impacted and be targeted and hunted down. I also it's also important to see our community thrive and be happy,
Yeah.
and during these moments, and whatever that looks like. It might be something small. It might
Right.
be being able to sit down and enjoy a movie, right? Finding, but as a collective, finding little moments, looking for your, como se dice, your little crowd, your village,
Mm-hmm.
and talking to one another and finding moments of happiness together as well. I think that's important.
Right.
I just went to my one of my best friends se ganó tickets to go to Disneyland, and we just went. And, I had been feeling down because of just everything that's been going on. And I almost felt guilty. I
Right.
felt
I bet.
guilty, you know, one, going to Disneyland, two, um, enjoying myself, knowing that there's parents that can't do that with their kids. You know,
Right.
there's kids that their parents, they're not going to see their parents, you know?
Right.
And so it's that constant kind of pulling,
Mm-hmm.
internal conflict of, yeah, this is happening, and it's messed up, it's fucked up. And I think as long as we continue to acknowledge without it consuming you to the point where you can't function, you
Right.
know, um, allow yourself to feel joy, allow yourself to have fun without guilt. um it's another thing if you're just completely choosing to completely ignore, that's different, right? But
Right.
having little moments of happiness and other people seeing our community have moments like that is important, and we should be also, sharing those wins, because we need
Yeah.
those wins. Anything, any little
Right.
win, you know adds up
Right.
and will help us, when we're feeling low. It's
Right.
not the big changes, it's the little ones, because those are going to add up more. They're more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
They like you mentioned before earlier in the conversation, they compound. So like they grow on top of each other, those little ones. And I
Mhm.
think, you know, I've said it many times before. We've had conversations, on this podcast before, but I think especially coming from a therapist, it's a good reminder that you can't shove shit down. You can't ignore what's happening, but you have to move through it. You have to acknowledge it and
Mhm.
say, it's fucked up and it's making me feel such and such way. So let me get it out of my body. You mentioned journaling, there's all these different practices that we
Moving.
can,
Mhm.
yeah, like all those different things. And we can get into that because I think people are looking for, they just feel so overwhelmed, they feel
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
helpless. And it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum
Yeah.
from people that don't have anyone directly in the line of fire of what's happening, um,
Mhm.
but still feel, because they're human and because maybe they're of a certain age and they don't have family anymore like that, but it impacts us, right? Like, see,
Yeah.
just if you're a decent fucking human being,
Yeah.
seeing
Mhm.
everything that's happening impacts you. And also, it's a threat to everything that this country, barely holding on to.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Mhm.
so you said nervous system, like that's how this collective grief, anxiety, trauma, it impacts us.
Worry.
And so
Yeah.
I don't think people, you and I, and in my circles, we know what that means. But
Mhm.
for those that are like, what do you mean by nervous system? What does that
Yeah.
mean for me?
So, your nervous system. So think about it in terms of a lot of us without even realizing the baseline for our nervous system is already amped up. Like we function amped up and it's not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be on edge or on anxious or worried all the time. That's not how our nervous system is supposed to be. But with everything that's been going on and just, just the history that our people have gone through, the trauma, right? Our nervous system is not at a normal, and I say that loosely because normal can look so different for everybody,
Right.
but we don't have a normal baseline where we're actually like calm. Our baseline is like this all the time. So what happens? We can't sleep, right? Insomnia,
Right.
can't stay asleep,
Mm-hmm.
um, you might not get hungry or you might overeat,
Mm.
uh, not wanting to like get out the house, having a hard time leaving the house, feeling overstimulated. So that's another one that a lot of the time we don't realize that we're actually reacting because we're so overstimulated, you
Right.
know, whether it's through being on social media all the time, through having, again, your nervous system already heightened. And so noises, day to day stresses are going to feel so much more intense, right?
Right.
And so paying attention to where is my nervous system? What is my baseline? What does my baseline look like? Right? Noticing the thoughts that are happening in your mind. Like what have you noticed patterns? Am I always only focusing on things that are bad or negative or you know and so when we start noticing where our thoughts are going, what our body's doing, then we can address the issue. A lot of the time we move around in life and don't realize that our nervous system is not at a normal baseline. It has that generational trauma.
Right.
If someone grew up in a home where there was a lot of violence or they experienced, homelessness, their nervous system has been kind of fucked since they were little,
Since day one.
right?
Right.
And if they never got the help or support that they needed, they're not even aware that their nervous system works. It's easily triggered. And so this is where, you might see people that are irritable and snap, and
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, wait, it's not that serious.
Right.
Well, usually I'm like, there's something there that that person probably isn't even aware of that it's causing that, you know?
Right.
Um, a big one for women is their hips.
Mm.
How do you feel when you walk? When you move your hips, you know, if you notice, if we actually stop, this is where they say like twerking is good, right? Because it, it releases trauma.
Twerking is therapy.
Yeah, move your
For
hips,
reals though,
stretch out
right?
your
Like
hips.
we store it in there.
Yeah, we do, especially women. We have so much trauma just, related to our hip area, our wombs, just because we are womb carriers, that in
Right.
itself, you're kind of, I don't want to say you're set up, but in a way, there's already going to be expectations of you because you
Mm-hmm.
are, or certain things are going to be imposed on you because
Mm-hmm.
you're a womb carrier. You might be seen as like more vulnerable, or whatever, right? And yeah, so we need to move our hips. So that's one area that I make sure I stretch out constantly, like, moving my hips, because I noticed that when I first started doing it, man, it hurt to like
Hmm.
to stretch my hips and my lower back. It was very painful, you know. And just doing a little bit every day it helps me. I like to stretch because it really does help my body. It helps my nervous system. It's
Right.
kind of like, hey, we're okay. We don't need to be like this. We can
Yeah.
release. So touching,
Right.
where do you carry your stress?
Right.
Headaches, stomach aches,
Excuse me.
that's all related to our nervous system being, out of whack, thinking we're
Right.
always in danger.
Mm-hmm. That,
Yeah,
and then
if you
like you
feel
were
like you're
mentioning,
always in danger, that's your
yeah,
nervous system,
yeah.
you know?
And like you
Mhm.
said, for those of us that never felt safe as a kid, especially, like the
Mhm.
PTSD of it all, like we're already
Mhm.
there. And with
Mhm.
everything happening right now, it could
Mhm.
get even more elevated and dire if we're not having different healing practices. So I
Mhm.
want to take this opportunity. I think we'll excavate a little bit more as I go into the questions and comments. We did a
Mhm.
little video to let people know, like, how are they feeling? Do they have any
Mhm.
questions?
Mhm.
So let
Mhm.
me go into the first one. The first one is more of a statement. Um, I'm not sure if she wants to be mentioned full blown, but she is the
Mhm.
person, the reason why I know you. Um,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and she's always raved about you. And then you had a community space online, a free community space for community organizers last year. And had the honor to be a part of it. And I saw you work and I saw you hold space. Um, and the type of people that were there. And I was like, oh, yeah. First of all, I should trust you anyways, because if Chola trusts you, I trust you. But seeing you, you know what I'm saying? Like
Uh-huh.
experiencing you hold space, that's really important to me? So when I was
Yeah.
thinking of like, who should I have on? And I was like, I think so. Maybe she'll be down. So thank you for saying yes. But let me read you the statement that I got from her. She
Okay.
says, working in legal advocacy and rapid response during this trash ash administration has been non-fucking stop. Todo es urgente, todo pesa, and I feel it all. Our work together helped me focus on slowing down, changing my pace, breathing, staying
Mhm.
grounded in the middle of it all. You
Mhm.
helped me find ways to carry this responsibility sin perderme a mí misma.
Oh my god,
This
I'm gonna
meant,
cry.
and you can. We cry all the time on this show. What meant so much for me, and I'm not even finished. What meant so much for me was not having to explain the broader political or cultural context, like the fear, the grief, the moral weight of this work, which
Mhm.
were already understood. You created a space where my identity, my work, and my mental health could coexist without
Mhm.
conflict. That
Right.
sense of safety and clarity has been profoundly stabilizing. I'm going to start crying. I'm
I'm
deeply
just like,
grateful.
I'm all teary-eyed. I'm like, "Oh my god," like, wow, like, what an honor. What an honor
And
and,
I'm not even
what a
finished. There's
privilege.
more.
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, there's more. I was like, I had to take a break because I'm going to start tearing. I won't be able to read. Okay. Whew, take a deep breath. Okay.
I'm deeply grateful for the care, steadiness, and insight you bring so lovingly. The impact of your support extends far beyond our sessions and continues to shape how I move through this work and my life. Ya sabes, it hasn't been easy for me, but because of you, I've learned to set boundaries, shift paradigms, and rest without guilt, and keep
Oh,
showing
God.
up con más claridad y corazón. Thank you for always holding space with such intention and compassion.
Oh my God. That's so beautiful. Oh, that just you just made my year. That's so beautiful. I'm glad that I'm able to do that. I'm glad that people feel what my intention is, and when I decided to go solo like that, like everything she's saying, not having to over explain,
Yeah.
addressing things that if you're not living, if you don't know what it's like to grow up, being Hispanic, um, if you don't know what it's like, navigating a cultura between, the States and well, in my case, Mexico, um, because you're not quite from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Um, and, one thing about having a therapist that understands the culture and also like, not that you need to experience everything that your clients went through because that's not the case,
Right.
but there's nuances that matter
Right.
that really do, right? Because not everybody understands what it's like knowing at a very young age that you might not know exactly what, but you know that your parents, can't just go out or can't just go to Mexico or to, you know, Central America. We grew up knowing at some point we become aware that our parents do not have papers. And so that's that's really hard to understand and to explain what it's like to grow up like that, to not being able to say no, I don't know, because there's an unspoken weight that we
Yeah.
very early on know is on our shoulders. When we go to school, it's not just us going to school. We got our families on our back. We got our ancestors on our back. I'm getting emotional.
Right.
Um, it's not just us. Even if we want to, it's not just us.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you know, these are the nuances that matter because if you don't understand it, it's not going to the client may not, the person you're working with may not bring it up.
Yeah.
However, it is an issue, right? Systemic oppression and the trauma that that causes and the
Right.
internal dialogue that we very much, these negative of not knowing, not being enough or not being smart enough or not, whatever. Um, we know what that's like. We know what it feels like to maybe not feel welcomed or be part of like the education system.
Right.
Um, and it's important because if this isn't brought up, that's a huge component why these, especially the kids that are labeled as like problem children or problem child, um, my question always goes back to like, is it is it that, or is it that there's a
Yeah.
system that isn't working and doesn't have the appropriate level of care? So now you've labeled
Right.
this child very early as kinder, TK, as a
Right.
problem child, and guess what? That label follows that child, and then they grow up to believe it.
Right.
And so these are things that matter. These are the nuances that matter. That if you don't
Right.
have, you know, not that other therapists with other, ethnicities or whatever don't, but it's not the same. Really isn't. You
Right.
know, they're not going to understand how to bring that up because if they didn't experience it, how would they?
Yeah.
It's not a thing in their mind,
Right.
you know?
They can't even
Um,
see that it impacts you because they don't even
right.
really understand it or even know that it
Mm-hmm.
exists. And I just
Mm-hmm.
want to take a moment and I'm going to clip that piece for sure, but damn, that unspoken weight that we carry.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
as first gen, right? Like that
Mhm.
unspoken weight.
Mhm.
I couldn't find a therapist that took my insurance in the area that I live. This was before everyone was able to do, virtual. But I was like, if I can't find a Latina and
Mhm.
I can't find a Black woman, then
Mhm.
I need to find someone that at least understands how the feeling of being othered, right? So I went with
Mhm. Mhm.
a white LGBTQIA plus therapist,
Mhm.
and I was like,
Mhm.
she helped me through so much shit. And then she,
Mhm.
last year she started her own practice, and I told her straight up, I was like, I was about to cut you, and I was about to get another therapist, but you've helped me so much, so I decided to stay. But reading
Mhm.
Karen's thing, because I was like debating, you know, do I get another therapist? I was just doing
Mhm.
monthly check-ins. My
Mhm.
therapist was like,
Mhm.
you're good. We've gone through some stuff. And I was like, I'm on a monthly check-in. I just want to make sure I'm on point. I don't want to be delusional,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, well,
and
deja de eso, luego con todo lo que está pasando.
yeah, so imagínate. So I was just
Ajá.
like, oh, I knew it was time for me to get with someone that understood, and maybe we go deeper than what I was able to go with the other therapist, right? And reading
Mhm.
Karen's thing today, Chola's thing today, it really, and then talking to you about it, I was always like, oh, like, to not have to talk about that and explain the
Mhm.
political, racial, being othered, being first gen, being a woman of color, like all these different things, these layered things. You don't have to explain it, but someone that
Mhm.
understands the implications and the trauma that it can impact you, how it impacts you, and
Mhm.
and being able to see you in a different way. I was just like, oh shit, I'm gonna be inspired to look for someone that meshes
Yeah.
with me. um
Yeah.
but I also, so I have another question. I think this is on
Mhm.
a lot of people's mind.
Mhm.
They ask, what can families do to support their children's mental health during these challenging times? Children often get dismissed, thinking,
Mhm.
oh, they are too young to
Mhm.
understand or even stress about what is going on. But even if they don't understand, they absorb the trauma, the stress, anxiety, etc. from the adults in their home. This is from
Mhm.
Ivan Hernandez, who's founder of
Mhm.
Decide Balance, and her mission is to help a million kids globally learn meditation. She does meditation in
Mm.
English and Spanish. You
Mhm.
guys, whoever's watching or listening, could probably hear her promo that we talk about all the time. And I think
Mhm.
this is a question that's on so many of us our minds. So, what's the
Yeah.
answer to that?
You know, I mean, let's think about when we were kids, right? Let's just go back to when we were kids. Did our parents tell you what was always going on?
No,
I mean, sometimes they did. A lot of time they did. Other times they would try not to, but we still knew what was up, right? For
all the
example, like
time.
even like that silent weight, right? That we unspoken weight that we feel. It's not a lot of the time. It's not like this like explicit thing that is sad, but we pick up on it. Kids are very
Right.
smart, and you know, parents dismissing or not wanting to. I'm not saying that you need to say everything, but
Right.
not acknowledging it is not helpful either,
No.
because then they stay with that fear. If they've heard about it with a friend at school, you know, um, because kids do talk about it, you know, and if they want to, you want them to feel comfortable enough that they will come to you, and they don't feel like they can't, or like it's a topic that it like we can't talk about, you
Yeah.
know. Um, it's better that we explain and give them an appropriate answer to their age, because then that's going to help with their anxiety.
Right.
Because, you know, when we're little, we don't have all the information. We don't understand the complexity of problems. We're very much like kind of black and white. Whatever we use a little bit of knowledge that we have to fill in the pieces that we don't know. And so what happens sometimes, it becomes scarier
Mm-hmm.
in their minds. They you don't want to talk about it, so then they might stay with like my mom is going to be, they're going to be taken away at any point. And so they
Yeah.
stay with that and they internalize that anxiety. And so what happens with, especially with little ones, anxiety, depression presents itself so different. It's a lot more somatic.
Yeah.
It shows up as like stomach aches, headaches,
Mm.
um, feeling like irritable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe having like more like outbursts or, tantrums. It's not that they're trying to, be difficult. It's just how do they, with the limited information, what do they do with that?
How do
Right.
they
And if they
process
feel like
this?
there's no way out, it stays in
Right.
their little bodies too. Right?
Right.
They get impacted that way. Stomach aches especially is a big one, for kids. That and feeling irritable, you know,
Right.
feeling like they might be, more more difficult, they might get angry easier. That's usually related. Not all the
Right.
time, but you know, if it's something's impacting, you'll see that it comes off that way. You're not going to necessarily think anxiety or depression right away. It's
Right.
usually you're gonna be like, what's wrong with this kid? They're
Right.
they're angry all the time, or or why is your stomach always hurting? Well, there's some anxiety that they're holding on to that they might not feel comfortable speaking out about, or they might get shut down and just stay with it. It's
Right.
important. It's better to have some conversation than to have no conversation at all,
Yeah. You
because
can't
then
gaslight
se
your kids,
quedan.
man.
Yeah,
Like, you
y
can't.
se
I know.
queda. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's not I know sometimes it's easier just to avoid, but the kids, man, even before they can walk, when they're little, they can tell. They can pick up on the vibes. Like, they're
Mhm.
so close and so in tune because 'cause they're so
Mhm.
new to the world. But going back to something you said, we're talking about the kids and how they process things, right? Like,
Mhm.
they're so little, they're so young, they don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the life
Mhm.
experience. So they're just gonna do whatever naturally happens, like you said, like it could be stomach ache, it could be lash out, it could be so many different
Mhm.
things. I understood so like me coming from trauma, I felt unsafe. I wasn't the
Mhm.
kid that lashed out. I was the kid that was like the good kid, the good girl, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's how
Mhm.
I saw myself like with that trauma. It wasn't until I became a mom and it changed my whole world, an older mom at that,
Yeah,
that I
me
was
too.
just like, how old were you when you had your
I had my first one at 34 and my second one at 36.
38? We're the same
Okay,
gang,
yeah.
around the same gang. So,
Geriatric pregnancy?
yeah, I was like, "Excuse
Oh,
me?"
like, dang, okay.
"What?"
Alright.
"Excuse me, sir, I'm in my 30s."
Like, okay.
But alright, okay. But, like, being a mom and I was just like, "Oh, all the kids that I remember being, like, bad, quote, unquote, bad." Maybe they weren't safe at the house. Maybe they didn't have food. Maybe they didn't have anyone telling that they loved them. Maybe they felt embarrassed because they, had hand-me-downs. Like, there's all these different things. Maybe because maybe
Mhm.
no one knew because their family in the household were just trying to survive. No one knew that they should
Mhm.
have a certain amount of sleep with certain
Yeah.
types of food. And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, it blew my mind. I was just like, oh, now looking back at all the
Mhm.
kids from that I remember, I was like, oh shit, like that kid.
All right, food lovers, listen up. If you're looking to take your cooking to the next level, then you need to check out Who's Hungry, the brand that's bringing bold flavors straight to your kitchen. Check out 2 of their specialty seasonings. We've got Spicy Jerk Seasoning, a fiery, flavorful blend that brings the heat and authentic Caribbean taste to your meats, veggies, and even grilled seafood. Next, we have Sweet and Savory Seasoning. It is a must try. It's the perfect balance of rich, bold spices and a touch of sweetness. Head over to their website, who'shungrycatering.com, to purchase these seasonings for your home cooking. So that's how you can support Word to Your Mama. If you have a service or a product that you want to promote, hit me up, DM me, email me, all that good stuff, and let's get you on. Let's get you on so you can get to the peoples. Another way to support is free. Tell your folks, tell your peeps, tell your friends. Another way to support is you buy shirts from the store. Soy bruja y qué. Shout out to all the brujas if you know what I'm spraying. I see you. I see you. And then we have other shirts like I Am My Ancestral Vengeance. We have it in blue, we have it in red, and another color that I have handy right now is in this heather gray. Yeah. Muchísimas gracias for listening, watching. If you've been here since jump, thank you. If you're just joining, welcome, welcome. I appreciate it. And yeah, gracias. There's a version of your brand that feels completely aligned. You can almost see it, right? But you can't quite get there on your own. So I'm here to help. I'm Marisa Estrada Rivera, aka Ritzy P, with over 20 years of experience across music, art, and emerging tech industries, working with some of the biggest brands. My gift is seeing the bigger picture and spotting patterns you can't see because you're so close to your work. That's why I created the brand vision and strategy consultation so solopreneurs and small business owners can access the same strategic clarity made accessible. So there's two ways we can work together. One, for focused clarity in 2 sessions with actionable next steps, and one for clarity plus ongoing support as you implement. I hold you accountable. You don't have to do it alone. So let's make sure your brand reflects the depth and magic that you're building. I have a few spots open this month. Let's build together.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
Don't you
looking
go
back,
back? I go back and I'm like,
I
man, there was something going on with that classmate or that, and
oh,
I'm talking about like going even back to like elementary.
and that's immediately when I came back. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not the kid's fault.
No.
There's some kids that
No.
come in here evil. That's rare. But like for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, it's just like they're probably getting messed up at home,
Eight.
bullied by their own people,
Yeah.
bullied by
Mm-hmm.
a sibling or whatever. No tienen ropa. They don't have food. They don't feel
Mm-hmm.
safe. And we don't feel safe. That
Mm-hmm.
presents itself on other things. And shame and guilt, that presents in
Yeah.
other ways. Like,
Dude,
so
yeah. One of the hardest things to get rid of is shame. It,
yeah.
it becomes so ingrained in you. It's shame is one of the hardest things to get rid of, especially if
Right.
shame is used, you
Yes.
know?
As a
This is
tool,
where
like, oh, they're gonna
yeah,
da da da. Like, yeah, no,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
bad.
Y deja de eso, the other layer to that, and I because you said, I was kind of quiet, the other layer to that, you got the kids, that are like very, labeled as bad kids, right? Because their behaviors. Then there's the ones that are the complete opposite, where you are very quiet because, you know, being seen is unsafe at home.
You get messed up.
So you just, you keep to
Right.
yourself, and you're not allowed to express yourself. You're
Mm-mm.
not, or if you stand up for somebody in your household, right? If there's abuse going on, then next thing you know, you're the one that's taking that beating. And so
Yeah.
there has to be a happy medium, where there's a little bit of both, No siempre un niño o un bebé calladito necessarily means it's a good baby,
Exactly.
right? Like,
Exactly. There's
to
so many
me,
things that could
that's
be
like, okay, I'm gonna
happening.
wonder why,
Yeah,
why, if it
for
does, if it
sure.
doesn't seem normal, because it's like, and then what you see is that later on, when they become adults, they're still using those same coping skills to deal with stressful situations. Whether
Yeah.
it's anger, or whether it's like, let me just make myself small and invisible so that
Right.
I can be left alone, so that I feel safe. And
Yes.
this is why it's important to like go back and also know this is ask your parents, what was the pregnancy like.
Yes.
What was happening when you were pregnant? Did you get care? Prenatal
Yes.
care. Um, you know, Imagine being pregnant and your partner gets deported and then they go missing and you never know what happened to them. Imagine
Exactly.
the like that's gonna give you so much context to what's going on with, again, your nervous system, you
Right.
know, to what your mom was going through during that time that might have impacted attachment when you were
Mm-hmm.
born. And so
Mhm.
sometimes we aren't sure, like, you're like, "I feel like there's something," and we can't put our finger to it. Sometimes it's pre-verbal stuff.
Right.
It's pre-verbal
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, trauma that it was experienced in the womb, you know, through the circumstances that were happening when, your mom, was pregnant,
Right.
relationships
During the birth.
ending. Yeah.
During the
During the
birth,
birth,
like,
that's
was that
another one. Yeah.
traumatic? All these different things,
Hmm.
and I think
Postpartum
the
depression, all that.
postpartum depression of it all, I
Mhm.
had it. I don't know if you had it, I
Oh,
had
me
it, but I
too.
didn't think I
Me
had
too.
it.
Yeah. I was so I was terrified of getting postpartum depression. And I worked. So first of all, one of the programs that I worked with was with postpartum, or
Mm,
peripartum, postpartum, parents. And so I was very much, knew about it. I was already a therapist. Um, but I went to therapy during my pregnancies, the first one, because just being like, I was always so used to being highly independent,
right.
very much
Same.
career oriented,
Right, right.
and so I was really concerned of how that was going to impact my, mental health. Not, because things were gonna change, right? So and I
Drastically.
also knew I didn't wanna get so depressed to the point where, because I've been very depressed in my 20s to the point where I was having, like, suicidal thoughts. Never like a
Mm,
plan or anything, but
right,
just, like, not wanting to be alive. And I was like,
right.
"I never wanna feel that way again." It's horrible
Mhm.
to feel that way. And so del miedo to feel that way again, I just like, I need to go back to therapy. And so I went back to therapy during pregnancy to just kind of prepare for that,
That's
you know?
smart. Yeah.
And so when my birth got very complicated at the end, with other physical stuff, like they thought I had pancreatic cancer. I was already
Oh,
at
shoot.
like 37 weeks.
Damn.
About or no, it was before, like 36 and a half or something like that. And
That's
so
scary.
imagine you're about to give birth
I
and they tell
can't.
you that,
Well,
like your life flashes before your eyes,
oh, I'm sure.
So I know that my child's nervous system was impacted because
For
it was
sure.
weeks of not really knowing, of just like, am I going to be able to nurse my child? Like, what is that going to look like? Um, and so, you know, when I had the baby, I was like, great. If I had the perfect storm of, the health scare with me, issues with my parents, that it was just like, okay, I'm glad I went to therapy because I was just like, okay, I was just kind of being mindful of my symptoms. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do it on my own. But if I call it going dark. If I start going
Mm,
dark, meaning like just negative, 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 and then just having a hard time just getting up in the morning, then I'm gonna need medication. I'm
mm,
not gonna put it off like I did the first time for a year. I was like, why did I wait so long? You know,
right,
and so because we had a plan in place, I had a plan in place. Um, I was like, okay, you know what? I was like, if I need to stop nursing, then I need to stop nursing because it's like my baby needs a happy mom.
right,
I need some mom that like is attuned and can have the bandwidth to take care of my baby when they're crying and you're not having any sleep. And so I was just like, okay, which one's worse? And I was just like, no, I'm gonna go back on medication. And
right,
luckily it never got bad like it
good,
had gone before. I haven't gone that bad. Because I'm aware. I'm aware of my
right,
symptoms,
right,
with the second one, um, I wasn't in there, but I already was kind of like, okay, it might be difficult because of just my first one being on the spectrum. And so, um, it didn't take me too long before I decided, oh, I'm going to go on back on medication. Like I'm already feeling some symptoms. I'm not going to wait till it gets worse. And so I was able to, I always tell people it doesn't have to be forever. It can
Right.
just be for right now. You just needed
Right.
to get through life, and I needed that. I needed medication to be able to get through life when I had two under two, one, with being on the spectrum and stuff.
Right.
Um, yeah, I had just have to have an honest conversation, having an honest conversation with yourself, with where you're at. And I
Right.
think a lot of the times we don't. We're not honest enough with ourselves. Whether it's, I think a lot of what I hear in working in our community is they feel it as an easy out,
Mm.
as an easy out, as in like, no, I can do it myself. It's almost like we we'd rather see it as like a flaw within ourselves than this other thing that's happening,
Right.
than this other external thing that's happening that is making us feel depressed, that is causing the depression. It's easier sometimes to think that we have some sort of deficit that, I can improve on. I don't need
Right.
to take medication. And it's like, it's not even a deficit. The chemicals in our brain are just not,
Yeah.
they're not at where they need to be right now. That's it.
Right.
That's it. But you know, we've been ingrained, work ethic is such a huge thing with us, right?
Right.
A lot of our worth is as to what can you provide for the family, right? Like for our loved ones, right? And so, you know, it's almost like we're conditioned just to only know to take the hard way. Because
Right.
if like it's almost estamos acostumbrados a que todo nos cueste tanto
Yes.
sacrificio,
Yeah,
and it's like, but it
it's
doesn't have to be that way.
like that's just our way of life, and
Mm,
for especially immigrant communities in this country, because
mhm,
of white supremacy, because of these systems, like you mentioned earlier, it's we only feel worthy by our labor, because
mhm,
that's how we
mhm.
were seen. We were
Yeah,
literally
and
the
think
black
about it,
community
where
was
does it
literally brought over here for their labor, the
for their labor?
Chinese for their labor, us for our
Mhm,
labor. So it's
mhm,
this thing that's ingrained in us, and then that's internalized by our families and our communities, and they've ingrained in us, like, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Like, everyone has
mhm,
to do something,
mhm,
especially women and
mhm,
Latino in our
mhm,
families, and it's just like
mhm.
it's this,
Sí,
and I
ajá.
think going back to
¿Qué te dicen? Si estás aburrida, ponte a hacer qué hacer.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, depression, what do you mean depression? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
first
you
that's
know,
first and foremost, and then it's just like, oh, you're bored, do something. You're not
yeah,
doing enough, right? Like, you need to be
mhm,
doing something, and your
mhm,
worth is attached to how much you produce. If
yeah.
whether it's
It's like
by labor,
transactional.
yeah, soul transaction, whether it's by labor, where it's by having babies, where it's
Mhm,
caregiving, it's like so transactional. And like going back to like the way to support the kids is
tratan
we need to have our own honest discussion with ourselves as
mhm,
parents, as tias,
mhm,
tios, aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, whatever. We need to have those hard conversations, and then we need to, like you said, have a structured, customized conversation if they bring it up, to let them, if they ask you questions, how do you have
mhm.
those discussions? Especially
You
now,
don't
it's like
have to, and you don't have to go right away into it. You can be like, "Let
exactly.
me think about it. Let me think about it," "Let me
Yeah,
think
like
about it. We will talk about it, but let me think." Because sometimes if they ask you a question and it's like, "Oh, shit, I don't how do I what's appropriate, what's not? What language do I use? What words do I use so that you're being authentic, but it's also appropriate to their age, right? And
yes,
also the words that
yes,
we use matter because,
better.
certain words can feel very big and scary for kids, right? And so
Right.
you don't have to just answer right away. And you can also be like, "You know
Mhm.
what? That's a very good question. And,
Mhm.
mommy and daddy want to talk to you about it. But let me think about it so that, we can talk about it a little bit better later on." Or,
Yeah.
but don't dismiss it and then never bring it up,
Exactly.
you
Because
know?
they'll remember that. They're gonna be like, "Whoa, I
Hmm.
thought we were gonna talk,"
And
and I
now
came
you've
to
made it
them.
into a thing. Now you've made it into a thing. Right now,
Yeah,
it's a
and they're gonna
thing.
be like, "I'm not gonna come again with anything like that anymore." They're gonna
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, lesson learned. I'm not even gonna do that." And it's just like,
And so they're
get
gonna
to
they're gonna go ask somebody that may not be informed,
yeah, might they're gonna
right?
ask their homie in their class that's
Mhm.
like giving
Mhm.
them the
Mhm.
wrong information, and it's like, how do we
Or
help
worse, los
them?
asustan más de lo que de veras es,
Yes. Yes.
you
And
know?
they're and then or there yeah, or there'll be someone that's not from the community and they'll bully them and be like, they're gonna take you and they're gonna take your
Right, which is
mom and
what
your
we're
dad and
seeing,
da
right?
da da. Yeah, like
Mhm. Mhm.
it's that. It's like there's so many different ways that we can check in with ourselves, help them feel safe. There's a couple of
And
people that
empowering
ask
them,
empowering
empowering your
them.
you're empowering your child
Mhm.
by having these conversations that are uncomfortable and difficult. It's as a parent, it man, it's fucking hard to be a parent right now. I mean, it was also like, man, my hats go off to all the moms that were had to like raise, I mean, both, right? But because I'm a mom, I saw, man, I saw how the moms were struggling, especially, you know, the moms that, were monolingual and,
Mm,
maybe didn't have the resources for certain technology, or didn't have the knowledge, man, to say that like I may be biased, but man, did I think our Hispanic women, especially those that are monolingual, man, did they go through it during the pandemic, you know?
right. Right.
Um and so, you know, having these conversations, you're also telling families, telling people, telling kids you're seen, you matter.
Yeah.
You matter enough that, yeah, we're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna take the time,
Right.
you know? You're important enough that yeah, we're gonna talk about it. Let me think about it. I feel like
Yeah, and
that's what it
also like
signals.
saying, "I don't know yet," or "I don't know.
Mhm.
Let me ask because I don't know." And it's okay. They
Mhm.
see you asking. They see that you don't know all the answers and you're not
Yeah.
perfect, and just like, "Let me
And
do
that
some."
they don't have to, that they can say, I don't know. Right?
And they have the right to say that and be like, "You know what, Mijo? I don't know, but I'm gonna do some research. Why don't we research
Mhm.
together? Or I'm gonna do some research and let's have this
Yeah.
conversation. How are you
Mhm.
feeling? Here's
Mhm.
this meditation." Da, da. So the last question that is like the most popular question that I got for you is, I'll read you two of them to kind of get a sense of the
Okay.
temperature of people. It
Mhm.
says, maybe you can ask her if she knows an exercise that almost anyone can do quickly to calm our nervous system, like how to strengthen our vagus nerve. That's from Jen
Mhm.
Kuroki, who's an amazing
Mhm.
ceramist. And then
Mhm.
another one was, what are some mental therapy self-care recommendations for a lot of people trying to find adequate mental health care? Is either overwhelming or
Mhm.
unaffordable. So they just
Yeah.
give up trying to find it. And this is by the amazing actress, and UGC creator Sean Serrano. So
Mhm.
what are some
But
tips for the peoples?
yeah, which one? I do the some coping skills that are pretty easy. So, I'm gonna have to take off one of these. This is for like
Okay.
your vagus nerve, right?
Okay.
So you see, I forgot what this little thing is called. This
The
little
little
thing,
flap inside?
the little, yeah, uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
So this is, you can do both, and you
Uh-huh.
just massage,
Oh.
and so that's a calming spot for your vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve, if you guys don't know, it's the biggest nerve in your body. It touches every organ. So when you stimulate that, you're telling your nervous system, "Hey, we're okay. We don't have to, we're not fighting a bear. You don't need to run away. We're
Right,
good."
right.
And so, just you're having a moment, just massage
Mm.
these gently. It can also be like, parece que me estoy limpiando las
I
orejas.
know. You need a Q-tip,
It's like,
girl.
yeah. So it's like in this like little, like underneath this fold
Mm.
right here, that's
Yeah.
another spot that you could easily massage, you know, and just gently massage for like a minute, or
Right.
as long as you need to. Earlobes are the same. That's why, when people, like some people really like their ears massaged,
Yeah.
because it's stimulating the vagus nerve. It's telling your body like, "Hey, we're
Oh.
good, we're calm." That's why it works. Um, the other easy one that you can do, um, so before I became a therapist, it would get on my nerves when people would be like, "Just breathe, take a breath," and I was like, "¿Qué es eso?" I'm like, breathe isn't gonna do shit for me. I need something like now. Um, but so what I learned is that doing deep, controlled breaths
Mm,
is again signaling your nervous system, hey, we are safe. We don't need to run away. We're good,
right,
right? Because if our nervous system is siempre está, very stimulated, if that's our baseline, then we need to practice bringing it down. So these are just good practices to use, good habits to implement them in like just your daily routine.
right,
While you're driving, while you're watching TV. ¿Qué te cuesta un minuto? It's not
right.
that much, right? If you do a minute throughout the day, that's you
Mm,
constantly, like, kinda, like, maintaining your nervous system. You're constantly kinda checking in with your nervous system, like, "Hey, we're good." The problem is that people wait till they're like, they're feeling like
next
they're in a
level.
crisis, they're so
Right,
overwhelmed, and so doing this in that moment, it works, but you just want, like, relief fast.
right,
And right, so you might feel like it's not working, but it is. It just might take some time.
right,
But if you're doing that on a regular basis throughout the day, that your baseline is going to start dropping, so the intensities it's going to start dropping too. You know, the the other thing that why I was going with the deep breathing,
mm,
1 minute of control, whichever way you
yeah,
listen, be practical.
right,
Be
right,
practical.
right.
If one thing being in this field has taught me, getting fancy with it, it ain't it.
Mm-mm,
Who has time for that?
nobody.
We're very much right now, short attention span.
Right,
You don't have to be this like crazy, I can meditate for 3 hours. I
yeah, we
can
don't.
go to,
Who
I
got
can
time
go
for that? Nobody
climb.
got time for that.
Yeah, no, no, no. Make it practical because if
Hmm.
it's practical, you're going to actually follow through with it. You're more likely to stick to it. And
Right.
remember too, you know? So deep breathing, just the square breathing. Inhale 4, hold, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You hold 4, you exhale 4, and you do that. That's like
Yeah.
that's pretty like, deep breathing 101.
Right.
The other way that works for me, and everybody's different, but when I'm feeling really anxious and overwhelmed, like I want to crawl out of my skin, I like to take a very, and remember, a deep breath, you're doing it right because your abdomen expands. If you're just
Right.
breathing from right here, if you're doing this with your chest, that's panic breathing.
Right.
Stop. You're gonna give yourself a panic attack. It has to be from deep within. So it's like,
Right. It expands, Aki. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it has to be from right here. Like singers know that when they're gonna, belt out a big tune, it's like you have to breathe from with your abdomen to be able to get the tune out, or
Right.
hold it. So that's how you're doing it right. Um, so the other way that I do it, I like to take a very deep breath and I like to hold it until like the most I can hold it.
Mm.
Like just I hold my breath, and that's gonna look different for everybody. But to me, that's also forcing me to like forcing my body to slow down,
Right.
you know? And so I hold it as long as I can, and I might do a couple of rounds of that till I feel like, okay, I'm feeling better. I'll hold it, and then once I can't anymore, then I just do a con ganas, con huevos, let it out,
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that, I mean, this may or may not work for some people, but, especially with everything that's going on, do you ever feel like screaming?
Oh, I scream
Because
all the
I
time
do.
when I'm in the car by myself and I drop off,
Mhm.
my son. I scream. I
Mhm.
scream. I say some
Mhm.
some crazy shit, and I feel
Mhm.
so much better. The top of
Mhm.
my lungs, like I've
Mhm.
never screamed before. I make sure the
Yeah.
windows are up because I'll be like, they're gonna think someone's getting
That
murdered.
yeah. Yeah.
But it feels so good. So
Yes.
good.
Especially, mujeres, no, we are very much, we're not told that we can express our anger or frustration or sadness with our voice,
Right.
specifically like, screaming.
Right.
It's not like, it's seen as bad. What's that saying? Calladita te ves más bonita, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not, it's almost like we're not allowed, we're not permitted to do that. And so, I never felt like screaming quite like I did after parenthood.
Tell me about
Becoming
it.
a
Tell
parent,
me about it.
dude. Oh my God. Like this is for those of you that aren't parents and are thinking about it, um, whatever work you don't do, your kids te sacan los trapos. Te van a sacar los trapos. Your kid will be the mirror to the things that you haven't healed.
The biggest mirror. It's
The
like a gift
loudest
and a
and
curse
biggest.
all at once, for sure.
Mhm. Mhm. So that's the one thing I do say, like becoming a parent did make me a better person because
Same.
I didn't want to repeat patterns, right? I wanted to do things differently, and doing things differently is hard. It's not easy because not everybody's going to get it, not everybody's going to agree. Um People are going to have their opinion. And so um you know, being mindful, like if you want to do things different, then you have to look at what your parents did. You have to know what your trauma is, what your triggers are. And
Right.
it could be that you're fine your entire life and you don't think there's anything, you're fine, I'm fine. And then the minute you have kids, you realize, especially if you have trauma at a specific age,
Oh
like,
yeah.
a lot of my early memories are of, my parents fighting. They used to get
Mm,
into really horrible fights, and I remember I have memory as early as, like, 3,
mm,
um, but it's, like, I think the age for me was, like, 4 and 5, like, that inner child, I always go back to that age, um, and so I remember when my daughter, um, was around that age, me being aware, I was paying attention like, okay, she's at that age. And I realized, no, there are things that are triggering me. And it has
yeah.
nothing to do with my daughter and it's my own stuff. So even though I had worked through some of that already, um, it just felt different. It presented itself a little bit different because now it's I'm raising my 4-year old, you know,
Yeah.
that
And you're
is I
thinking
see her
about,
and I see myself a lot of
yeah,
the
you
time.
see yourself and you see like,
Mm,
yo, like that wasn't
mhm,
cool. I can't
mhm.
imagine my son at that age being out in the streets. Like what was happening? Like that is
Yeah,
so young. Like you see yourself, you see how vulnerable they are, how they didn't know, and you're like, yo, you were out in the streets or this was happening to you. Like
yeah. I you
it's
know, I
scary.
I make fun of my mom's good. She's like, ya no se burlen de mí. I make fun of my mom. Me and my mom we have a good relationship, but it's good now. It wasn't like that when I was younger. But as I gotten older, I would have been able to bond with her in a different way, as a mujer, as a mom. And there's a lot more things that I understand now. But I would make fun of her because I remember one time le pregunté a mi esposo, "Dude, remember when your parents used to make you get out of the car and save a parking spot at the market?" And he looked at me and he was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm all laughing, like, ha ha ha." Ha." And he's just like, No, I don't know what you're talking about." And I was like, "Really? He didn't make you do that?" He's like, "No, not really." I was like, "Dude, my mom used to make us do that all the time." We'd get off and then she'd go y daba la vuelta. And I remember one time I was like there and I was like, "No se puede parquear aquí, señor." Mi mamá
Oh,
se va a parquear.
the
And I was like,
friend,
"Mom."
friend.
Yeah, I was like, "Mom, ¿qué estaba pensando?" And she's like, "Mija," literally she said this, she's like, "Mija, estaba bien pendeja, no sabía lo que estaba haciendo." She's
Honest.
like, "Te
That's
podía haber
honest.
atropellado." And I was like, "Eso o me roban." While
Yeah, I
you
was
went
gonna say kidnapped. Yeah,
you know? And I was just like,
totally.
I would never do that to my kid. I'd be too afraid to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, these things that I'm able to talk to my mom about, and like even ask like what was going, like what were you thinking, that during that time. And I understand my mom was going through a lot during that time. She
Right.
really was. And so, um, but looking back and knowing like, okay, there's something around this age. I need to be mindful when my kids are at
Yes.
that age, or even before that, work on it before that. That doesn't mean
Right.
you might not feel it. You might
Right.
still, but at least you're more aware so that you can catch it sooner, you know?
Right.
And again, going back to like if you talk to your parents, to your elders, then you know what's going on. Like that's a funny story now. Like we laugh a lot of with my I laugh a lot with my mom about some of the like craziness that she would do. And she admits, she's like, I was so just not in a good place. Like I was anxious.
Right.
I had so much going on, que no, I was just she was in survival mode too,
She
you
was
know?
survival mode. It was another time
Mhm.
también, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
certain things weren't
See?
weren't happening or
And
we
it
didn't
allows
know
you,
about it.
yeah, and it allows you to also, I think, be compassionate with your parents, because, we forget, that they're humans. They're
Right.
humans. Um, and they have wants and needs aside from being a mom and dad, right? And we may not understand that. They, well, at least in my case, they didn't have the freedom. My mom didn't have the freedom that I had. So, it's like they would marry the first person they meet.
Right.
They didn't get the chance to explore or even know themselves, or they were so
Right.
young, right? Um, so this is why again, going back to, it's important knowing your history. It's important because then you can laugh about it later and it becomes a bonding moment. And then you can then
Yeah.
share that story to my kids who aren't gonna know what it's like to have to save a parking spot.
Right? We'll never know everything. Like
They'll
I
never
tell my
know, but
son
what
stories that something will come up. He'll be like, "What?" I was like, "I know, isn't that crazy?" And we laugh
yeah,
about it. I was like, "But I'm here. Like I made it through."
yeah.
And
But it turns
you
into
could
a
barely
bonding
go to
moment.
down to the mailbox, and I get all freaked
Right.
out. Like, do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a different world. But you know, r- kind of talking about what we talked about today. I think some of the main points are being honest with ourselves in the
Mhm.
situation, this collective
Yeah.
grief, trauma, anxiety. Where are we
Mhm.
at? What's our capacity?
Mhm.
If you have children or you're around children, be honest with them. Don't gaslight them. If you
Mhm.
say you're going to have a talk later, you need to do some research, or maybe this is not the appropriate time. Go back to them. They know
Yeah.
everything,
Or
they
or
see
or or
everything.
ask people, ask for
Ask
help,
for
ask
help.
for,
Ask for help.
you don't have to know everything. We're not meant to know everything. We really
Exactly. We're
aren't.
not
It's
encyclopedias
impossible.
here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And then if you can find an amazing therapist such as yourself, I have a we'll have the link to your practice, your private practice, because I know you
Mhm.
have other
Oh,
amazing therapists there too. But I'll
yes.
also
And
have a link to there's resources. I think I talk about this all the time. If you don't have insurance or your insurance doesn't cover mental health, there's a lot of places to do sliding scale. That's how I survived until I started working full time
mhm.
and it was covered.
Yeah.
Sliding
Yeah.
scale places, therapists that are
Me too.
gaining their hours that are fantastic.
Mhm.
I've gone there during
Mhm.
crisis, and there's usually something like that in every town, even here in this small town.
And I was gonna say, because the other question, right, was, what to your point, I would say, don't give up. It might take you, it might take you some time to find, the
The
therapist
right
that's right
one.
for you.
Right.
And, I'm not right for every person, and that's okay.
That's
We're not
okay.
meant to, right?
Right.
Um, Shop. It's okay to shop for therapists. You don't owe us anything. Like,
Right.
a lot of us do free consultations, like a quick 15-minute phone call, you know?
Right.
And also, if you feel like there's someone that you really want to work with, and let's say maybe they don't take insurance, you're not going to lose anything and reaching out and just asking.
Yeah.
Really. Like you aren't. I always tell people, like, ask, you know, what are you going to lose? They say no, or they say yes,
Right.
or, like I try to hold like at least two spots for like pro bono,
I
you
love
know
that. I love that about you.
and
Yes.
that's I in when I decided to become a private practice, at first I didn't want to take insurance because it's such a hassle to work with the insurance. It's a
Mhm.
systemic issue. You
Right.
know, we're an easy scapegoat to say, oh, well, do you really want to be a therapist because you only do cash? And it's like if people understood how difficult they make it, and we need to work a certain way with when we're working with insurances, and so um at first I didn't, and so I was doing sliding scale. I was still finding ways of like, how can I still make this accessible,
Yeah.
because it wouldn't sit right with me in just how I am, the person that I am, to not be able to give back in some way, shape,
Mhm.
or form, you know?
Right.
And so at first it was like that. Then I found other ways of like, oh, maybe I can work with insurances. And it can make it even more accessible. Um, so that, people can access this resource, but still keeping, maybe a couple of spots. A lot of us have a couple of spots of low sliding scale, I'm sorry, sliding scale. And not everybody has like pro bono spots, that's like to each
Right.
their own. But you
Right.
never know who does. You never
Right.
know if you explain maybe circumstances. You don't have to go, don't divulge everything, because that can be a lot for you can get flooded. But, I've had clients reach out where, they are in certain circumstances, and I have the capacity to be able to work with them, or even if maybe in that moment I don't. And later on I do have the capacity, then I will reach out and be like, hey, are you still interested? Are you still looking for a
Yeah.
therapist?
Yeah.
We all have our own way of giving back, you
Mhm.
know. But if you really, really, want to work with, don't say no. Don't even like shut yourself. Ask. You're not gonna lose anything.
Right.
Ask.
Asking
Mm-hmm.
doesn't cost a thing, and also you don't have to be in crisis to
Mm-hmm.
want to
To be
get
in
therapy.
therapy. Uh-huh.
I've tried
It's maintenance.
multiple. Yeah, it is maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was like, she was
Mm-hmm.
like, "You can go." I was like, "No, I wanna do monthly." Like, I just wanna
Mm-hmm.
check in, but also
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to try someone out beyond the 15-minute and try someone out and be like, "No, it's not a good fit." Like, "It's not
Mm-hmm.
meshing with me," or "There's a
Mm-hmm.
vibe." Like, I'm just a real big vibe person, and
Mm-hmm.
I told different, groups that I've had, and they roll, and I was like, "It's for reals." A therapist came in with the big gulp,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "No." I was just like, during my session, I was like, I can't." Like, it just threw me off, and then when I
Uh-huh.
went outside, then she was smoking. Nothing against big gulps and nothing against smoking. It was just something that it didn't mesh with me, and I went to
Mm-hmm.
someone else, and that was the last person I went to. She was amazing, and so there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of work, but the
Yeah.
work is worth it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
wanna say thank you so much for teaching us some practical, quick, and easy skills for us to regulate. And
Mhm.
I really
Ooh,
appreciate, and I think those listening will really appreciate that you said make it practical so that you can do it. What did you just
yeah.
remember right
And
now?
I was gonna say, another easy, very, very easy way of, you know, using like a way to help you calm down or feel grounded is, I like to use like YouTube a lot, and
Mhm.
so I like to use like binaural beats.
Love
I don't know if you
love
guys
me a
know what that
binaural
is.
beats.
Okay,
Hell
and it can sound
yes.
funky sometimes, but, I like using binaural beats a lot. So if you even just go on, like, YouTube and you search binaural beats to calm down, or then, they come up, and you need headphones, 'cause it goes back and forth. It's similar to EMDR. It's, like, kind of the same concept.
Right.
Um so that's helpful. You just have to put them on, and you can be working. You can just, I fall asleep to that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Even when I have trouble sleeping, because I have really bad insomnia. And so I use
Mm.
like different things to help me fall asleep. But one of the things that I also do is I use hertz, like frequency and hertz.
Yes. Mhm.
On, not some people think, oh, it's like woo woo or whatever, but man,
No.
the delta wave
The delta
is the
waves?
one. that
Please
goes into
believe it.
deep, deep sleep. So theta, that's your where your REM sleep is. That's where you're dreaming and you might be like kind of half away, half asleep, you know. You wanna have lucid dreams,
Yeah.
use the theta. But if you want to get rest, use the delta.
The
The delta.
delta. Yep.
When I'm having a hard time, that helps me fall asleep, just
Yeah.
delta waves for sleep. And
Right.
they have so many options, so
Yep.
simple, so easy. They even have like different like types of music like that, even if you like, I think on Spotify as well, you
On
know.
Apple,
uh
on all you can
mhm,
go on any platform that you use and you
mhm,
put in binaural beats, they'll show different ones for sleep, for abundance, da 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 da. And then you
mhm,
could look at different frequencies and then
mhm,
you see
mhm.
the abundance and then you could see the theta, the
Yeah.
delta, the da 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 and different ones. You could go to sleep to them like you said. One thing that's been helping me cuz we're getting all our news through social media, like the
Mhm,
latest
mhm,
news, sometimes the
mhm,
realest news. And
mhm,
so I started feeling anxious and I was
mhm.
going to bed. I see laying down, just scrolling, and I wouldn't go to sleep until I was like about to pass out and then put the phone down. I
Yeah.
was like, my husband's like, no, that's not good sleep hygiene. I was like, you're
Oh,
right. So what I've
yeah.
been doing since the beginning of the year is I only go in the room and I do my like face thing and
Uh-huh.
I'm playing the binaural beats to kind
Uh-huh.
of get me
Uh-huh.
in the zone. And
The
then I
zone.
get
Uh-huh.
into bed, sit down, and I have my journal and I write because my
Uh-huh.
therapist is like, get the stuff out of your head, like
Your
get it
head.
out of your
Yeah.
body.
How it's
And
always
so,
good to have like a notepad and a pen or a pencil
right,
to
just to
just
get
even
it
in the middle
out.
of the night. Sometimes you wake up like, oh shit, like I forgot this. Just
Right.
write it out.
Jot it down.
Or the other thing you could do, I text myself.
Right, I do
Like
that
if
all the
I
time, or I
can't,
email
yeah.
myself, like, "Remember to do
Uh-huh.
this." But, like, what
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this month, when like, I go to sleep just alone, no phone scrolling, but what's been helping me
Mm-hmm.
do that is journaling, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to have crazy sentences, like, they don't have to be complete sentences. I write
Mm-hmm.
what I'm grateful for, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
releasing, and then what I'm manifesting, and then I write it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Close it, put the little thing,
that's it.
get
It
into
doesn't,
bed.
again, going back to it doesn't have to be complicated, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
write 3 pages. It can just be a
It
sentence or two.
it doesn't
It's
yeah,
about
it doesn't even have to be
consistency.
grammatically correct. It's just like
Mhm,
stream of
mhm,
consciousness, like get it out,
yeah,
and that's been
mhm,
helping me so much. And
mhm,
for those of us, if magnesium, if you
yes. Magnesium's
magnesium
so
helps.
good for you.
I
Helps your
personally
nervous
can't.
system.
Yes, I can't take it. I've tried all the different types of magnesium,
Oh,
but
okay.
what's been helping my son since he was little, and then again right now as a teen because he's like hormonal and stuff, is
Mhm,
and what's helped me for mad years is the transdermal spray. I have magnesium spray and I put it at the
yeah.
bottom of my feet,
You soak your
and
feet, uh-huh,
I can sleep at like all the way through the night. If I
yeah,
don't take that, I can't. And I travel a lot to speak and I take a little bottle like to spray and I do that.
uh-huh,
So those are like some
yes.
things, because I know our sleep is really getting really
It's
impacted
bad, it's
because
bad.
of
Mm,
the stress.
mhm.
But Araceli, thank you so much for your time,
Thank
for your
you,
wisdom, for your
thank you.
candor and honesty. And usually we wrap up by having the not so rapid fire questions, the AK slow as hell questions, but today was such a unique
Yeah.
conversation. I
Just because also I wanted to bring this in because a lot of the times we think that the only way to, work on our emotional needs or mental health, whatever you want to call it, is through therapy. No, there's also people in our community
Yes.
that can also be that, right? Therapy
Mhm.
can look, there's so many ways that
Right.
therapy can look. Right? So, when I couldn't find a therapist, that like, cause I really wanted a therapist that was also incorporating like the indigenous wisdom, our ancestral wisdom, right? La medicina that has been passed down. And so I am so lucky that I know people in the community that they're not therapists like myself in that way, pero they are, whether they want to be, you want to call them curanderos or,
Yeah.
like a mix of like
Healers.
they're holding whole circles in space,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, you know, that's also another way, Obviously, like, be careful, be mindful, make sure you're going to someone that's ethical, do
Right.
your research. But that's also another outlet, these
Yes.
healing circles where that are led by these people that are in con la medicina, that carry
Mhm.
medicina. Man, if you haven't been to one of those,
It's powerful.
let me just tell you, when the world is just, I'm fucking done,
Mhm.
I'm like, I need to go sit with, my padrino or whoever, and I'm
Right.
just gonna be like, okay, like I need to, we need to sit down and we need to, whether it's, doing a sweat, you know,
Mhm.
whether it's sitting with different medicine, yeah, for me, there was when I started doing more of this, going back and what I wanted to look like. And part of the reason I really wanted to incorporate all that was because I couldn't find that.
It's right.
I couldn't find that. And it saved my life. I'm not even gonna lie. Like that saved
Mm.
my life. Like it brought me back to myself, you know? And so it doesn't always have to look like therapy in an office,
Right.
you know? It can also be therapy outside. Our ancestors, they had sweats, right? It can look like
Right.
people sitting around, you know, la lumbre, el fuego, right?
Mhm.
Abuelo. Um, and that's therapeutic in itself. It doesn't have to be this fancy, like with all this jargon,
Right.
psychobabble bullshit. Like
Right. Right.
just because someone is using that language doesn't mean that they know what they're doing or that they're any better. To
Right.
me, it's like, that doesn't mean shit. Like, if you can't foster a good connection, it's the relationship ultimately between you
Yes.
and the therapist, or you and that elder or whoever you go to, that's gonna be the healing component, you
Yeah.
know? So, yes, like, there's so many other ways. A lot of us are doing I slowed down a lot. I took a break from doing, like, events just to keep myself sane and be able
The
to do
bandwidth of it
more.
all. Right.
Yeah, yeah, just to be in balance and be able to still support community if, in other ways. Um, but, there's a lot of us that hold, like, whether it's virtual, healing circles, whether it's in person, you know, you just have to know where to look.
Yeah.
Whether it's like, just look up stuff on Instagram. A lot of us post there. I'm not on Tik. I kind of am on Tik, but I don't go on it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but
Deleted. A
whatever
lot of us
social
deleted.
media,
Mhm.
yeah, just fine, because it takes you knowing one person in the community, and then now, like, next thing you know, it opens to, like, another network. So, sometimes people are underground
Right. A
because,
lot of times they're underground.
they're underground because that's what we got to
Yeah.
do, what we got to do. You know what I mean? So
Right.
you can get creative as to what that looks like. It doesn't just have to be therapy. It could be healing circles in community. It can
Yeah.
be, going to the mountains, or for a day, a couple of hours, and just sitting
Right.
and drumming. You don't have to know how to drum.
Yeah. It comes
You can just
natural.
drum. You can
It
just
just comes
and drumming is
natural.
so healing, like, I have a drum, you know, using your senses. I like to burn copal.
Mhm.
To me, that brings me my nervous system down, is
Yeah.
using copal. And for those that don't know what copal is, it's a resin that is very, very special for our ancestors. They use it to connect. They use it to cleanse. I mean, there's so many ways. But that's another way. There's so many ways. You just have to reach out. Think about what works with me. What is
Mhm.
going to connect with me.
Yeah.
And there is something. There's more and more of us doing that type of work. You know,
Right.
it's just that we've had to step away from everything, not everything, but a lot of how we were taught to think, especially more like us that, were in school back. There's a lot of, like, awesome things happening now, and how the way they're teaching,
Yes.
that I
Mhm.
didn't have. Um, but, you just have to find someone that, like, is in that. And if you don't know anybody, to just reach out. A lot of the people that I've met was just through like, hey, I like what you're offering. Like, do you want to collaborate or do you want to,
Yeah.
you know? And so like that's how I connected with like Gloria from Nalgona. That's how I connected with Cynthia from Botanica Santana, you know. And through them, then I met like, Mauricio, which is another, person who, sells a lot of like indigenous medicine.
Mm,
Um, and other therapists who are interested in doing this type of work, Muriel, you know, who is like awesome. She's about giving back to the community. And it's like, okay, we're on the same, we have similar ways of how we see therapy,
right.
and they're always holding, either low cost, circles, or free. A
Right.
lot of us do volunteer our time. When I do circles, a lot of the time, it's not for the money. It really
Yeah.
isn't. It's more about making it accessible to the community. How
Right.
can I, and the other thing is too, breaking down the stigma of
Mm,
what therapy looks like, because a
right.
lot of people have this view of what así bien seco, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
like in an
Mm-hmm.
office, like, let
Right.
me, and it's like, no, this is also therapy. So even I see it as a way of like not just giving back to the community, but also those that may not be as open to therapy, but maybe they're open to, seeing things from this perspective,
Yes.
sitting with other people. And maybe we're not calling it therapy. We're calling it, healing circle. We're calling it
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Right.
And it's like, no, that's therapeutic too. But then you get to meet other people that like, oh, okay, this is therapeutic.
Yeah.
This is also therapy. And it's like, oh, this is
Yep.
what it could be. And then next thing you know, people are open to it. It's happened. I've seen it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. It's amazing. It's beautiful because that's one person that you touch, then that spreads, who knows, I always say, tú avienta las semillitas.
Right.
Unas semillas no van a crecer, unas van a crecer right
Right.
away, otras las vas a ver crecer años después. It doesn't
Take
matter.
time. Right.
Just do it, you know? Just
Yeah.
do it
I
without
think
any
that
expectation.
I think thank you so much for bringing that. I mean, because I don't think we talked about that enough about the community aspect. Where
Mhm.
today is the day because communities coming together. We're
Mhm.
talking across social media, emails to
Mhm.
mobilize.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
know we're gonna have more and more of that. And that's
Mhm.
what's important, And a lot of us
Yes.
have feel so isolated, even though it's a more technical digital world. It's made us
Mhm.
a little bit more isolated unless
Mhm.
you actually take action to find community, whether it's
Mhm.
online, in person. And you're right, therapy can look so many different ways. Sometimes for me, what changes my days in the morning, I'll just go outside to be in the sun. I'll take off
Yeah.
my shoes and just ground a
Mhm.
little bit,
It
like walk
grounds
a
you.
little bit.
Yeah.
It
And
literally
that's something.
grounds you, you know?
Yeah, and that's something that our ancestors knew about. Like, they very
Yeah,
much knew about that. This isn't new.
yeah,
A lot of what is in therapy right now, a lot of the concepts,
yeah.
they've been knowing. They've
Been
been
knowing.
knowing.
It's in our
They've just
it's an
it's in our
ancestral
DNA.
wisdom. They've been
It's in our
doing it. Like
blood.
it's our shit. Like,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
like a lot of our marginalized communities, people, immigrant communities, they're just like, yo, you took yoga, you took all this shit. This is us. Like these breathing things, these
The
circles, all those different things. I appreciate. Oh, and I wanted to show you my shirt that I'm wearing today. I am my
um,
ancestors' vengeance, because
is
you were talking
yeah.
about that earlier. And I
Yeah,
think that that's very important.
beautiful.
It's just like we have to honor them. We have to remember them. We have to
Mhm.
remember the wisdom that we have gained from them. And what
And
we
you
can
don't
hear
have
sometimes when we do that
yeah.
stuff, like circles and healing circles.
Yeah,
And
and
what were you gonna say?
you don't have to know every person, in your lineage. Like,
Mm-mm.
sometimes people feel intimidated, to reconnect or to look into that. Because, different reasons, right? There's like the religious trauma, there's many, many reasons.
Levels.
Um, you know, and the thing is, like, there is no right way. You just
Mm-hmm.
got to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
so, do I know all my abuelos and abuelas and tios and tias? No, I don't. That doesn't stop me from connecting with them. That doesn't stop me from calling on them, you know?
Right.
Um, and so, one thing that I do talk about, it's like, when I felt intimidated. It felt kind of awkward to be like, okay, ancestors, what's up? I want to connect. But over time and just being open to learning and being just open minded to different experiences, working with again different people and different, one of the big ones that really opened my mind was this Jasmine from, I don't know if you know her from Esoteric Esa.
Mm-mm,
I
I don't think so. I'm not
Okay, so
familiar.
she's awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. She's down,
Okay.
and no tiene pelos en la boca. I love that, And I took her classes,
Cool.
and and I gave myself permission to, hey, just be curious, it's fine, you know,
Right.
learn, you know, and it just opened up my mind more. And the more just wanting to just connect, it was just me talking to them sometimes, you know. Yeah, some people might go, estás loca, and I was like, oh, maybe, but esta loca está feliz when I'm
Right?
doing that. I feel good. I
Right?
feel connected. I feel protected. They've
Mm-hmm.
come in my dreams. I don't see a face. Sometimes it's just like a knowing, you
A
know?
knowing,
And
a
so this is
feeling.
all,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and this is all therapeutic.
Yes.
But people could be like, "No, that's not. That's juju, or that's like weird,
Woo
whatever."
woo.
It's
No,
like,
it
"Dude,
is.
yeah." I'm like,
It's
"No,
whatever.
it's
It's
not."
whatever it is for you. Whatever it looks like for
If
you.
you just if Man, I've never felt as empowered as I have when I like just connected, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so, just find little ways, little, it's an investment too. Think of, whether it's, therapist or other modes of seeking support that you might have to invest. Like, yeah, sometimes it is an investment, but
And it's worth it.
you're not gonna lose on yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're never gonna, no vas a perder nada.
Right.
Putting that investment in yourself, that's the best thing that you can do. Because if you're
Yeah.
doing well, then everybody else, other people are gonna like, they're gonna notice, like, what is she doing? Or what is he
Mm-hmm.
doing? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And they get curious. Or, your family members, it becomes like they see that, oh, well, I didn't think that was like that. It was anything. And then they see that, like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to therapy. And then they're like, wait, what? You're going to therapy?
Right.
Like, you'd be surprised if people notice the changes, like, then that opens their mind and makes them be more curious. So like, you
Yes.
yourself you become such a big vessel of change and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
You'd
You never
never
know who's
know the
watching. You never
impact. Yeah.
know. Exactly.
The biggest impact doesn't have to be a big thing. The biggest impact sometimes is just being yourself, being authentic, and being open, and, sharing experiences. Um, and that just makes people feel curious, you know? And
Yeah.
you, everybody can be an advocate. Everybody can, break cycles and in different ways. Just have to think of it creatively, you
Yeah.
know? It's not just, and it's not always obvious,
Right.
It can be simple
Yeah.
as, if you didn't get hugged, growing up, or there was
Yeah.
no "I love you," then that's it. All you do is make it a point to, I'm gonna make sure that I say I love you to my kids all the time.
Yep.
You're already breaking, a generational cycle right there.
Right.
Being vulnerable and saying, "Yeah, you know what? I don't feel good today. And it's okay. I don't have to be perfect."
Yeah.
Your kids seeing that, like, it's so powerful. Like, it is so powerful. Like, man, my kids, some of the things they tell me sometimes cracks me up. But then I feel so lucky that they are able to talk about, either can come to me and tell me these things that, they might be outrageous, but it's something that they got in their mind, and they feel comfortable because I don't act perfect or pretend to be perfect. And, um, I don't, if I feel like crying, I'm not like, like, you know, but if I need to, take a moment to cry, they've seen me cry,
Oh yeah.
and I don't say like, oh, don't cry. It's like, yeah, mommy's feeling sad, but it's just for a little bit.
Right.
It's just for right now. I don't want that to stay with me, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And kids, man, you're giving kids such a big freedom. And just the impact of that, like, lifelong, it's huge.
Right.
You know? I know I can go on for on and on. So, um, Yeah.
No, no, no.
I just
I
I'm
really
so passionate
appreciate
about this.
I really
Mhm.
appreciate it. Like I said, thank you for sharing everything and taking the time to have this very, very important discussion. And like I said, I usually have this whole list of questions that I ask every guest at the end. But since it's already like almost 2 hours, but this
Yeah,
is a
it's
unique
okay.
thing. I did want to ask you one of the questions, and it's
Mhm,
to end on a good note, on a happy
mhm.
note. Is what is your go-to hype song? What is the song that you put on when you're like, oh, I need to amp myself up. I need to hype myself up.
I need a oh god. I have a I don't know if I can choose one. I love listening, you know, when I need to calm my ass down, when I need to um regulate my nervous system, it might be I am stuck on snooze. Snooze by I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it Sa? Sa?
I don't
Is that her
know. I
name?
don't know what I don't
SZA?
know what song that
She's like
is.
an R&B singer.
I'll have to look it up and I'll add
SZA.
it to the
I think
list.
it's snooze. And it like it calms me down.
Oh, by
Um
SZA.
Is it SZA? I was like,
Is
is
it
it
SZA?
SZA or
That's how you
Sa?
say it. I was like, "Who are you talking
Okay.
about?" SZA. That's how you
Okay.
yeah.
SZA. Oh
Mhm.
my God, I just showed my age, right?
No, no.
Well, I love listening to that song to calm down, to feel hopeful. Lately, I've been listening. Okay, so I'm huge fan of Pac since I was
Mm.
like very young. When Pac died, like I know this people think you're ridícula, you're extreme, but in hip hop kind of died with for me when Pac
Mm,
when Pac
mm,
was no longer alive. Um, and but lately it's been
mm.
Better Days by Pac. Like
Okay.
I can just listen to that song and it helps me stay hopeful. If I need to shake it off is Échale miedo al fuego
Who's that by?
by oh it's Darwin something.
I'll look for that. I'll look for that. I
Yeah.
don't know that, so I'll look for that. Because we have a
Yeah, that
playlist for all the guests that have been on. I put in like one or two of their songs on our playlist, which actually, now that I think about it, I got rid of Spotify after all that ice shit. So I'll have to see
uh-huh.
where the playlist lives now. But I like to, put a link to the song. I could put it like a YouTube or something to a
Yeah,
couple
so
to the songs. And,
that's
it's a nice way to, connect with the guest that
yeah,
was on.
that song, that Échale miedo al fuego, I like it because it starts slow and then it gets like boom, 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 boom. And it talks about like throwing your fear into the fire and lead with your heart. And so that
Ah,
like kind of gets me pumped up, when if I'm
nice.
feeling anxious or worry or, you know, and then what else? So I listen to banda. I love banda. So, you put some banda on there, some Grupo Firme, dude, you got me singing. My kids like, or some like Marisela songs,
Yes.
like, yeah, I'll put it really loud and I'll just start, pretending I can sing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Mhm.
much. I really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Please let the
Thank
people
you.
know. I'll put in the show notes, but let the
Mhm.
people know how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Araceli Vidales .lmft. That's the one that's it's tied to my business. So I have a love and hate relationship with social media.
Of course.
But right now it's a lot for me. It's more about like putting information out. But if I have events and things like that, that's where I post. I'll tag whoever I'm collaborating. I like to collaborate with people, just to introduce them to also like the field of therapy,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can also it's like there's we can there's so much we can do together. Um, and then the other one would be my website. So uh, it's www.culturawellnesstherapy.com. So there's
Perfect.
a cultura, cultural wellness. That's not it. It's literally
Okay.
cultura
Cultura.
wellness,
Okay.
yeah, .com. Yeah.
We'll put it
And I
in the show
wanted to
notes.
use, yeah, when I thought about the name for my practice, I really wanted that whoever saw that they know immediately, she's gonna know my experience. She's gonna get it.
Right.
And so I was
Yes.
like, cultura needs to be in there. Like that's gonna, oh, she knows, But I also wanted it to have like a positive connotation with
Right.
wellness. And so it's cultura wellness. And then just to, for the website, I had to, add the culturawellnesstherapy.com.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much again for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you
You.
for all the work that you're doing for the community,
Thank
and
you.
the knowledge that you're sharing, and especially during this time. So, muchísimas gracias. I
Mhm.
really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions. Feel free. I'll answer as best as I can. Please, like pretty easygoing. I love working with people. I love collaborating. To me, it's more about like the bigger picture,
Mm,
and normalizing having these conversation, normalizing just mental health and rest
yeah,
without
for
guilt.
reals.
You
For
know?
reals. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you.
Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Intro beat produced by Nico Beats. For partnership inquiries and contact info, check out wordtoyourmama.com. And as always, Word to Your Mama is brought to you by ritzyperiwinkle.com. And now, introducing
The Supernatural Bear Corner.
Supernatural Bear.